Yes.
Good morning, everybody. Are you going jolly today? We have an amazing guest, return guest, Mr. Andy Cahan of the Turtles, and he is back with his latest book out, and he, as you can see on his t-shirt, he is the most famous musician you have never heard of. And Andy, I can't say it is so nice to have you back here, but welcome back. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm always thrilled to be talking with you. You're such a wonderful celebrity.
You're the celebrity, but it's so nice to have you back. You are the most famous musician that you've never heard of. Explain that, just for those of us that hadn't heard that before.
Well, my career in the music industry started in 1965, and since then, I've performed and recorded and hung out with hundreds of really famous people. So I collected my archives and I put together this wonderful coffee table book.
This has been an art piece in the making, and it is near and dear to your heart, I know. And I've already ordered my copies, signed copies, I'll have you know. And so you all need to go do that. First of all, let's just get this right out there. How can people get a copy of this amazing book that has your life's amazing real history in it?
It's pretty easy. If you Google the most famous musician you've never heard of, it'll pop right up. There's several websites about the book. One of them is called Best Classic Bands by my author, my editor, Jeff Tamarkin. So it shows a sample chapter with with Harry Nilsson and Ringo Starr and Joe Walsh and Timothy Leary.
That's awesome. And I understand that you just joined Cameo. So if people want to, they could actually hire you to do a shout out for them, a birthday wish, an anniversary, or just a happy hello. And you can sing your hits and play them because you have hits.
Yes, that's wonderful. Cameo, it really is a great, great app.
That's great. So if you all want to have Andy front and center for your best buddy, that's the way to do it. Check out the app Cameo and get that, and then you can have him personalize a message for you. Now, he is a consummate pianist. He is a super hit wonder on the piano. I've had that experience in person on my piano in my living room, and I am so grateful. So, Andy, tell us what's happened to Johnny Farfisa and what's going on since COVID hit.
Well, Johnny Farfisa is an album on Munster Records from Spain, and it's 1965 recordings. Pardon me. And one of those recordings, called She's Gone Away, was released in 1980 on Moxie Records. And instead of using my name, Andy Cahan, the owner of the company, David Gibson, decided to call it Johnny Farfisa because I played a Farfisa organ, and Johnny Rotten was very popular. And so he called me Johnny Farfisa. And since then, I've become a garage band hero with all the, garage band rock record labels and websites. It's a very cool song. It's on YouTube, and it's called She's Gone Away by Johnny Farfisa.
Love it. Now, weren't you doing something in Spain with that? What did you have going on in Spain with that?
Yes, that's an album, a vinyl album they released 3 years ago, actually, in Spain on Munster Records.
Neat.
And I am selling autographed copies. So free shipping, and I'll autograph a copy of the album, and it's really a great album. It's a lot of fun. 1965.
That's classic now. So where can people find you to get that?
Same place. If you Google the most famous musician, you've never heard of, my email will pop up, and then you can just send me a message.
You must get messages from all over. That's so cool. So, you know, I've gone along and talked to people and they're like, oh my God, the Turtles, the Turtles. And they remember where they saw you. They remember where you played. It's exciting. So tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've encountered along the way with the Turtles. Something incredibly memorable that has you particularly grateful in today's COVID.
Well, I'm telling you, Mark Volman and Howard Kalin, the owners of the Turtles Corporation, have been extremely generous with me. And because of Mark and Howard, I've met everybody in the business that I grew up listening to. And we've done a lot of wonderful television shows. We did the Gary Shandling show, and we've done just a bunch of wonderful tours in Australia. And we actually did a music video in Australia on a show called Countdown. And we did a song called Mama Open Up from the Moving Targets album on Columbia. So the chapter in my book about the Turtles is enormous. And I've got never seen before photographs and a lot of backstage road stories that are really great.
You have road stories. You have some stories that we probably can't even discuss here.
Yeah.
What's your favorite road story?
Let's see. My favorite road story. Well, we were performing in Australia, and our first concert was booked in a city called Toowoomba. And so we arrived at the gig, and it's way out in the sticks. And we set up all our equipment and did the sound check. And there were 9 people on the crew, you know, the lighting and the sound and the stagehands. So we had a great sound check. It was a nice big venue. Then we all went back to the hotel and took our showers and had some food. And then we got back in the car and drove back to the venue to play the gig. And when we arrived, there were 9 people there, just the crew. Nobody came to the show.
Oh no, why?
And this was in Toowoomba, of all places. So we were scared, very scared that the rest of the tour was going to be like this. But it was great. The rest of the tour was all sold out venues all across Australia. So that was our opening gig. So it really scared us pretty much.
Oh my God. Well, nothing like beginning with a practice run, right?
Oh, I tell you, it was amazing. So we still played for 9 people.
Oh my
And
God.
they all applauded.
Now, you've brushed elbows with so many famous people, as you've said. And we talked about it once before on this show. And I'd like to go back to some of the stories that you told, just to recap for people that are new. You had a premonition about a Beatle, and that premonition came true. So quickly, if you would, tell us that story again, because it's such a brilliant and beautiful story.
So 1968, I'm sitting at my harpsichord in Hollywood, California, and I'm thinking, and then I had this premonition that a Beatle came over to my house, sat down next to me, and took his shoes off. So this is what I thought in 1968 while I'm just playing the harpsichord, writing songs. Then later in 1991, Harry Nilsson and I were really close friends, and I had recorded 35 songs in my living room with him. And he invited Ringo Starr over to my living room to record children's stories like Billy Goat's Gruff and all these stories. And so Ringo was going to narrate these and read these stories, and Van Dyke Parks and Harry and I were going to do the music. Of course, that never happened because Harry passed on. But Ringo came in, we shook hands, we talked. He was really, really nice. He sat down next to me. It was hot, it was warm. So he sat down next to me, took off his shoes. So that premonition of a Beatle coming over to my house and sitting down next to me and taking off his shoes came true that day.
That is so beautiful. What a brilliant story. You know, it just speaks to, musicians are usually sensitive people. They have a sense, they have an intuition, and these stories are just part and parcel of that kind of sensitivity. What a beautiful thing to have seen and then actually have that come true. You know, I mean, how many people can say they sat down with Ringo Starr, who showed up at their living room after all? Right?
And I have to say this again, Ringo was absolutely wonderful. May I tell you one little story about Ringo?
Please.
Okay. After we finished recording, I asked Ringo, "Hey Ringo, I have a flavor for you." And he said, "A flavor?" And I said, "Yeah, is it okay if Harry takes our picture?" And he says, "There's always a price to pay." So he get up there with me, and Harry took our picture. And then I said to Ringo, "How about if I take a picture of you and Harry?" So I took that picture. But Ringo said, "You know, I have a really interesting story I'd like to tell you and Harry." And we both went, "Sure, let's hear it." And Ringo said, Paul McCartney was on an airplane with Mal Evans, who was the roadie for the Beatles. And Paul said to Mal, "You know, I'm trying to create this magical mystery band that is not the Beatles, but a different name, and it's going to be like a story album. And so we're going to pretend we're somebody else. And do you have any ideas on who we can, you know, what the name of the album should be?" And Mal Evans just plainly said, "Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band." And that is from Ringo telling Harry and I. So that's a true story, how the name Sergeant Pepper came out. And by the way, I can't wait to hear Paul McCartney 3, his new solo album that he just recorded during this pandemic.
Amazing. Yeah, we look forward to that for sure. I mean,
Oh boy.
just the fact that you had that experience, and here they are, and we're still in this mix. And for all of us that, you know, came along even after the fact, it's just so heartwarming. It's so important to be with people that have that history and those experiences. I can't tell you that enough. And I know, because I've talked to people that are so tickled about you and what you do and what you've done with the Turtles, and, you know, in your whole career. How did you get into being a keyboardist, really?
Oh, I loved monster movies. And when I was 12 years old and 13 years old, I would make Frankenstein and Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, and I would use all this wonderful classical music, De Meistersinger and Flying Dutchman Overture and The Rite of Spring. Anyways, my sister, she said, "Watch the Ed Sullivan Show tonight. There's a group called the Beatles." So I watched the show, and then immediately, like everybody else on the planet Earth, I wanted to be a Beatle. As a matter of fact, I had curly hair, and I went to the store and I bought Perma-Straight, and I straightened my hair to be like a Beatle haircut, and it worked really great for 1 hour. Then after that, it all frizzed up. But I really loved a song by Del Shannon called "Runaway." And I taught myself on the keyboard that solo, the organ solo in Runaway. And then, of course, when the Beatles came out, I just listened, I bought their album and I learned every song on the album, literally, you know, and I played piano to every song on their album.
Yeah.
And then listening to Ringo play drums, I taught myself how to play drums. And then last, I picked up an acoustic guitar and started to just play rhythm. So I played drums, guitar, and piano.
That's fantastic.
But my dad, when I was 10 years old, sat me down at the piano. He wasn't a musician, but it was a hobby. So he said, I'm going to show you something. And he said, do what I do. So he plays a D minor chord, like a triad, bump, 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 bump. And I did it, bump, bump, bump. Great. Then with his other hand, left hand, he played the melody, bum, 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 bum. And I did it. So I bum, 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 dum, dum, dum. And I did it perfectly. Then he said, okay, now we're going to switch. So with the other hand, you play the bump, bump, bump. And with your other hand, you're going to play the melody. So I did it one time. And that was my only piano lesson. So my dad taught me how to play left and right rhythm and lead in 5 minutes when I was 10 years old.
This was meant to be. See, the Beatles inspired you and then off you went. Look at that. And did you have a journey or what? And this book speaks about that. So the most famous musician you've never heard of is a title of the book. And you can get that by Googling online, by the way, Andy Cahan and the most famous musician you've never heard of. And you have to get a copy of that book. It is the best book to give away as a gift this season. And of course, you can always give away a personalized message by Andy on Cameo. So grab the app and have him create a personalized Christmas message for you to give this away. And you will have history in the making because Andy's the coolest. He's totally fun. And he has all these stories of amazing musician encounters and then a little bit of road debauchery, things that were all rock and roll. And so, Andy, what else can you share with us that's one of your favorite memories of being on the road and out there with all these incredible artists?
Well, I toured Australia and the United States with Little Richard. And to me, he was the most outstanding performer I've ever worked with. I never rehearsed, but I knew all of his hit records. And the first time we performed in Hershey, Pennsylvania, he came out on stage and I had goosebumps for the whole show. I couldn't believe it. But the highlight was the Grammy Awards in 1974 or 73. And I was appointed to be the music director for Little Richard and Chuck Berry. So our rehearsal was an upright piano in a little room and Little Richard and Chuck Berry and myself. Okay. And I was freaking out because the Beatles idolized Little Richard and Chuck Berry. Paul loved Little Richard and John loved Chuck Berry. So it was like a full circle. Here I am with the guys that the Beatles idolized. So that was a spectacular moment.
Well, what did it feel like to be in your position? I mean, here you were, you became a musician, you sort of followed the yellow brick road of passion, and now what? You're in it, you're doing it. What was it like to be in it?
Well, you know, when I was 24 years old, it didn't really register. I was excited. I wore a tuxedo and I was on camera with Little Richard and Chuck Berry. But now at 72 years old, I look back at it and I go, it's just incredible.
You're magical.
It was magical. And I'll tell you one more magical moment that I thought was really magical. Harry Nilsson took me over to Ringo's house and we hung out in the living room and Barbara Bach, served us some snacks. And I went to the bathroom and on the wall was a gold record it don't come easy in the bathroom, right? So anyway, I'm sitting there talking to Ringo and Harry, and there's two guitars by the couch, and they're, you know, a red one and a blue one with the Ringo Star in the fretboard, you know. So I said, do you mind if I play one of your guitars? He says, go right ahead. So I pick up the guitar and I'm strumming. So Harry starts to sing, I listen for your footsteps coming up the drive. And then Ringo joins in. So here I am sitting in Ringo's living room playing Don't Pass Me By with Harry and Ringo singing. Goosebumps. You know,
Surreal.
and all these wonderful stories are in my book. So it's really a fun historical book.
Yes, and people could actually hire you to come and speak for them. I just want to put this out there because I'm telling you all, you have to experience Andy speak about these things in person. This is not just a radio interview, maybe, you know, read the book. You have to get the full Andy Cahan experience. And when I first heard Andy speak about these things, there was a standing ovation for him in the room. And there he is just sharing his stories and his passion. And he has a passion for music. It's not just these stories. I mean, he lives and breathes music, but this is something you have to experience. And so this would not only lift your spirits, but make your year in the middle of this crazy COVID. And yeah, Andy, you have, you know, story upon story of things, but what's your favorite song? What is your all-time, not even of the Turtles, but what's your favorite song ever?
It's written by Paul McCartney. It's on the B side of It's Just Another Day, and the title is Woman Oh Why. And he's playing all the instruments, and he sings really raunchy. You know, it's not a pretty silky voice. It's, you know, it's really raunchy. And that's my favorite song, literally. It's called Woman Oh Why by Paul McCartney. It's on YouTube.
Have you ever met Paul McCartney?
Yes, I have. It was at the Alice Cooper Clarence Clemens Oktoberfest in 1980 something. And Flo and Eddie had a radio show in New York right after Howard Stern on K-Rock. So at this big event at Universal City Studios, there were 40 radio stations from across the United States, and each radio station had a tent with the truck with the satellite dish, and they would interview hundreds of rock stars. So my job at Flo and Eddie's radio show, they got me a limousine, and my job was to pick up the celebrity, bring them to the tent, and then we'd sing Happy Together, all together, and then we'd sing the hit record of that celebrity. And it was Eric Burden and Dean Torrance and Bobby Hatfield and Mickey Dolenz and all these great guys. And one day they said, pick up Harry Nilsson. And completely blew my mind because I was a gigantic Beatle fan, and the Beatles' favorite singer-songwriter was Harry Nilsson. So I picked him up in Agora Hills, and we sat on the 405 freeway, the 101 freeway for about an hour in traffic, and he was telling me all these amazing, amazing stories about John Lennon, because they were really, really close. They recorded the Pussycats album together, and they were just really, really close. So that was spectacular, meeting Harry Nilsson on that radio show. So, and of course, doing all these songs with these celebrities, which are all on YouTube. I posted all these performances. So it's really cool.
Where can they find you on YouTube?
Well, if they Google my name, Andy Cahan, Cahan, on YouTube, they'll find that. And then you can add Mickey Dolenz, Harry Nilsson, uh, Bobby Hatfield, Eric Burden, Dean Torrance, and then you'll see these videos of me performing these songs.
I
They're
love,
hit records.
yes, you hit records. Now, what is your preferred and favorite key to,
Oh, I like G,
why?
the key of G, because it's all white notes. So literally, you can close your eyes and just make a funny shape with your fingers, and anywhere that you hit on the piano, it'll sound fine as long as you use the white notes. So that's
You
really
say
easy.
you don't like minor chorded songs.
Yeah, I don't like A flat and E flat and B flat because they got all these black notes and you have to, it's hard.
Yeah.
But C minor is fun because you can do stuff, but G is my favorite key.
Now, how would you describe yourself as a pianist?
As a pianist,
Mhm.
I'm a rock and roll caveman. I,
What's a
I'm not a
caveman?
virtuoso guy who's, in fact, I cannot play a scale. You know, when a piano teacher sits down and they go ba 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 ba, I can't do it. I can't. I just can't do it. So that's the only thing I really can't do is play a scale. But I can play rock and roll forever. My teachers were Little Richard with his
Hmm.
pounding, and Dr. John the Night Tripper,
Oh,
Mac Rabenak, with the Professor Longhair, New Orleans type of, blues New
yeah.
Orleans stuff.
Really?
So those are my two teachers of piano. So that's how I play. I play all by ear, and a piano teacher will teach you 1, 3, 5 as a triad. But I do a thing called the claw, which is 1, 2, 5. So
Interesting.
that's how I play triads. So it's all self-taught. I cannot read a note of music. I
Really?
listen to a song and I can play it. I have relative pitch, so I can hear a song and then just play it.
Amazing. So you can actually do private performances. You will play for people now if they want you.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's so cool. So do y'all hear that? You can actually have Andy come and play, well, even on Zoom, play virtually for you and hire him for amazing gigs to play and to recap some of the best memories when all else was still free and open and moving along. So how have you been doing during the COVID? What's been keeping you busy
The
besides
book. The
the book?
book, it was perfect timing because the book was finally released on Amazon the same time that COVID came out. The book came out in April and
Mhm.
COVID started in what, February or something?
Yeah.
So it was good timing for that. So when people are sitting at home, it's a good time to read a great book with a
Yeah.
lot of great pictures and stories.
And this is really, this isn't just telling stories. You lived this. So you had these experiences with these people. And so in terms of music, where do you see music going now? What do you observe in the music industry as a whole?
Well, I'm disappointed because when I grew up with vinyl records and tapes and stuff like that, it was a product that you would go to the music store and buy it,
Hmm.
which meant that the artist can keep track of all the sales because it was a literal unit. But now everything is download on the internet. And to me, it scares me because there's no way you can keep track of that. You're trusting some kid at a computer logging in how many hits you have. And of course, on YouTube, you can ask YouTube to play any song and
Yeah.
it will play that song for you. And the artist does not get paid. So that's unfortunate these days.
Well, some of that is, I mean, there are some YouTube, I guess, advertisements when they use you for advertising that you can get paid, but it is kind of sketchy out there. It's like the Wild West of collecting royalties. In fact, I just saw that Sony had a thing out about collecting royalties in Europe or whatever. And, you know, it's tough because it's moving so quickly. Also, I'd like to speak to the idea that you spoke about vinyl records. That means sitting down and having an experience of listening. Now it's like, well, whether I sit down and listen, I can just choose a song out of everything, and I'm not hearing the full progression of that artwork of that album. And before, it was an entire experience that you had. You listened to the whole album.
And the format of 12 by 12,
Mm-hmm.
it was wonderful because it was a big graphic,
Yeah.
and some of the albums had fold outs with, you know, which both of my albums are like that. They fold out into it. They have little books in it. So it's got a lot of pictures and stories, sort
Yeah.
of like a mini book.
Yeah, right, exactly. It was like, it's like an art piece. And today you just get a digital piece of something. You don't get to see, feel the whole thing. There's something about tactile things, even taking the record and putting it on the player, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's the thing. And then putting the needle down and you're waiting. I
Yep.
remember that. You were making hits and I was singing to the Muppets. Literally. But
I love the Muppets. Both of my kids grew up listening to the Muppets.
my brothers were playing your music and I was listening to that. And
Yes.
yeah. It's come full circle, and I'm so grateful we've gotten to meet. And I've been, you know, able to sit in the room and have the pleasure of watching you recount your incredible, incredible stories that are the making of this book. This is history. This is something that's a collector's item for history of rock and roll, and you lived it. That is just astounding. It's so cool. So when you look back on your career, what is it that you think of first? What's one of your just prize moments?
Oh, well, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Ringo Starr, Harry Nilsson, Jimmy Webb, you know, the famous songwriter who wrote Up, Up and Away in My Beautiful Balloon and Galveston, and By the Time I Get to Phoenix and Wichita Lineman. So when Harry brought Jimmy over to my house to record a song called What Does a Woman See in a Man? These kind of things are amazing. Like before we recorded, we went to a restaurant called Stanley's in Studio City on Ventura Boulevard. And there I am with these two amazing songwriters, you know, Harry Nilsson and Jimmy Webb. So my book is full of these encounters.
Yeah, and you have a knack for that, Andy. You really do. The Tales of Andy Cahan should be the secondary follow-up book.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I hope that we get to open up again and people get to get out and perform, because there's nothing better than having that live energy, you know? And
yeah.
You're friends with Stephen, I'm going to botch this, Kalinich?
Oh, yes. And I met him through you when we went to a musical party in Malibu.
Yep.
And you introduced me to him, and we've been very close friends since then. And of course, he wrote some songs with Brian Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And he is love. This guy is a gentle spirit, and all he does is generate love. His poetry and his vibrations are just wonderful. He's a terrific guy.
That's neat. That's neat. And see how those paths cross so easily, and then you share those great stories and then collaborate again. Have you done collaboration with him since then?
We've been communicating and trying to get to that step. You know, he expresses interest, let's write a song, and I say, sure, let's write a song. And then we're just waiting for the moment.
All right, well, I'm going to hold out for that moment, because I think the two of you need to do that.
Oh, yes.
I think his poetry, your musicianship, and then, you know, you have a knack for things too. Can you sing us something? Ahem.
It's still a little early for me.
I'm putting you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Let's see.
I'm sorry.
Well,
It's
you know, it's a funny thing. When I sing, it's more like talking. You know, like there are certain artists like Bob Dylan or, you know, other artists that speak, like Burt Bacharach. He
Mhm.
doesn't sing, but he writes amazing songs. So when I perform live, I do speaking songs like Gloria, you know, by them, with Van Morrison. And the song doesn't really have a melody. It's like, I'll tell you about my baby. You know, she comes around about 5'4", turn my head to the ground. So it's like talking. So
Yeah.
when I perform on stage, it's a talking thing. But I do satisfaction, you know. I can't get no. I can manage that. And I do, I saw her standing there. It's pretty easy songs. So I'm not a great vocalist like you are, because I've heard your vocals and you are totally amazing.
Thank
But
you.
I'm a speaking vocalist, you know, more like a talking.
You
So that's what I do.
so you you have passions in life that are not just music. Share with us a little bit about how you spend your days and the things that inspire you, especially now.
Well, I'm very fortunate to have a sailboat at the harbor, Channel Islands Harbor, and the serenity and the beauty of the ocean and the dolphins and the whales and the pelicans and just the amazing vibrations and all the moisture really is great. It's really good for you.
Yeah,
So I go for a 4-mile walk on the beach every day.
cool.
And, you know, I'm trying to take care of myself and keep my distance. And it's just, you know, I call the pandemic a new world order because the whole globe is affected,
Yeah,
and it has put a mute on entertainment, live entertainment.
right.
So it's really a very tough time. And a lot of people are experiencing anxiety and depression because they can't do stuff that they normally would do. So it's a very tough time. And I hope we all pull through this.
Thank you. That's a beautiful message. I hope you'll all hire Andy through Cameo to send an uplifting message or a song or something wonderful, because he just has a knack. When you watch him sit down at the piano and play, and he just can pull stuff out of his head, it's amazing. And I've had that beautiful experience, and I encourage you to have that as well. You know, it's so nice to speak to you again, and I wish you all the best with your book. I love your stories, but I think, without being a spoiler here, people need to get the book and experience your stories and then hire you to come and do something for their group to inspire them. I think it would be brilliant. So Andy Cahan of the Turtles, and Andy Cahan is not just of the Turtles, he's Andy Cahan, and you know him as Andy Cahan, the most famous musician you have never heard of. And you can find him on Google, and all his information is out there. He is always a joy, and he is amazing when you see him just go off on his stories and do a presentation. So Andy, I can't say thank you enough. It's been such a pleasure having you back here on Making Life Brighter. Thank you for making our lives brighter again.
Oh, I am so pleased and so happy to be on this show. And I would like to say one thing.
Yes.
Go Jolly.
Bless you. Right on, Andy. Right on. All right, everybody, go Jolly. Make the best of it, because it's what we got. And here we are, and we're still together. So love you. Look forward to getting my book. I can't wait to crack it open and have some coffee and a latte by the fireplace and check it out. So thank you so much, Andy. Go Jolly, everybody, and go out and make somebody else's life brighter.
Absolutely.